Just been eaten for today would be 9 days. So that makes 6 hunger strikes in just 1 year, or less than a year. We're still in August. The most important part of our work is precisely to get the voice of those that are detained to the public. Right now I'm attempting to do a video call with Rudy Macias, who was in the F4 unit on February 1st, precisely one of the incidents and the reason why the University of Washington was called to support the information request that we had on this incident. So what happened, and you'll hopefully hear from Rudy in a second, is that people have been planning again hunger strikes after hunger strikes. That was the first of the year. And as they attempted to actually talk to ICE, they were brutally attacked by several guards, and ultimately they were gassed with different types of chemical agents. He's gonna hopefully speak to us. We scheduled this call with him at 12. We know that sometimes, for some weird reason, they're not allowed to speak to us. And so we will hopefully get this phone call with him. For us, he's the priority, not only because he's detained, but he's one of the witnesses and the victims of this constant violence and use of force used against people in detention. Since this is taking a bit, I'm gonna first introduce to you Elia Diosdado. Elia is one of the many families that we have been trying to protect for years, so they wouldn't be going through what they're going through right now. Elia's son, Ulises Diosdado, has been detained for a really long time. He suffered mental illnesses. In immigration matters, you're not allowed a phone, hold on. You're not allowed a, sorry, I'm trying to get this to work. This is not working. People in detention on their civil matters are not allowed immigration lawyers. You have to pay for your own. Yet, the courts recognized years ago that even people with mental illnesses should be provided a lawyer. So Ulises, because of his mental illnesses, was assigned a lawyer this year. And his lawyer came to represent him after the fact that on March of this year, he was in his unit with his cellmate, and his cellmate gave him a sandwich for free. He was just gifting him a sandwich, and the guard didn't like it. So she and 15 other guards beat him up for accepting a sandwich. That shows the example that the University of Washington is going to tell you about of the excessive use of force just for accepting a sandwich. Not only he was beat up, he was also sent to solitary confinement. When we went to visit him, he couldn't even tell us what happened. That's how severe his mental illnesses are. We have pictures of how he looks. His lawyer has also that information on right after he got beat up. And we invited Elia to talk about precisely what is the impact of not only having a detained loved one, but also being treated this way and being in danger at the hands of GEO and ICE. Elia is going to speak in Spanish, and I'm going to translate.
Buenos días, buenas ya tardes. Mi nombre es Elia Diosdado. Soy mamá de Ulises Torres Diosdado. Él tiene un poquito más de un año detenido aquí. Él tiene problemas emocionales. En marzo nos dimos cuenta que más de 15 guardias lo atacaron. Él no supo explicar qué pasó.
Rudy?
Él está en peligro y todos los que están aquí están en peligro.
Okay, permíteme un segundo, no me cuelgues.
Este centro debería ser cerrado. Él corre peligro, todos corren peligro. Todos los de aquí deberían ser liberados. Gracias.
So my name is Elias Diosdado. I'm Ulises' mom. He has several emotional problems. In March, we found out that more than 15 guards attacked him. He couldn't explain us what happened. We know he's in danger, and we know that everyone detained is in danger. And I believe this place must be shut down and everybody should be released. Thank you. So we have Rudy on the line. Rudy, ¿nos escuchas?
Sí.
Ok, permíteme un segundo. Estoy tratando de conectar a la bocina otra vez.
Okay.
Ya está aquí la gente. A ver, ¿quieres hablar?
Claro.
Permíteme. Es que no sé por qué dice que está conectado, pero no se oye.
Okay.
A ver, sigue hablando, Rudy.
Sí, te digo que a lo mejor escucharon nuestra conversación y
Sí.
buscaron un sistema de la tablet para que yo lo pudiera
Okay.
estar con usted.
So Rudy's saying that the tablets are not working, so that's why he made a phone call. I don't know why this connection is not working on, as usual. So I'm gonna put it close to the mics, and hopefully that will help the sound. He's gonna speak in Spanish and I'll translate. Rudy, adelante y me dices parte por parte para que yo traduzca por cada oración, ¿ok? So me dejas hacer pausas. Adelante.
Ok, lo que pasó en febrero, ¿verdad?
Sí, todo lo que pasó, por favor.
Ok, lo que pasó en febrero para mí fue injusto, porque usaron exceso de fuerza porque nosotros solo estábamos pidiendo hablar con oficiales de migración.
Okay, para ahí. What happened in February, I believe it was excessive because all we were asking for was to talk to ICE agents. Adelante.
Ok, para quejarlos del maltrato, impedir nuestros derechos, que no nos estaban atendiendo como se debe atenderlos.
Because we were demanding our rights and asking to be treated the way we're supposed to be treated because they have not done that.
Lo que nosotros estábamos pidiendo era que nos dieran ropa nueva, jabones, el médico que los atendieran bien y la comida estaba mal y que llegara temprano.
What we were asking for was clean clothes, soap to wash, medical care, and better food.
Y como no... Y entonces ellos se enojaron y nos quitaron los teléfonos, la tablet, nos quitaron el agua y nos quitaron todos los juegos y apagaron hasta las televisiones.
So what they did instead was to cut off our communications, phones, tablets. They even cut off the water, and they even después del agua, ¿qué más? Que te cortaron el agua y
Y apagaron los televisiones y los quitaron todos los juegos que teníamos.
and they even turned off the TV and took away the game console.
Y después de como a las 2 horas que no queríamos abrir la puerta, ellos entraron tirando los gases lacrimógenos.
And about 2 hours afterwards, because we didn't want to open the doors, they came in and stormed the door, the unit, with chemical agents, with some sort of gas.
Y nosotros le dijimos que había muchas personas que estaban enfermas de diabetes, de muchas enfermedades, y a ellos no les importó nada de eso.
We told them that there were several people in the unit that are sick, that are diabetics, and they didn't care.
Y por eso es que yo estoy apoyándolos a ustedes, la resistencia, diciendo todo esto, porque no es justo lo que pasó ese día aquí con nosotros.
That's why I'm talking to you right now and supporting the work of La Resistencia, because what happened to us was not fair.
Lo que yo quiero que la gente sepa allá afuera, que este sistema está peor que una prisión, como que nosotros venimos de prisión, sabemos cómo es el sistema de las prisiones.
And what I want people to know in the outside is that this system is worse than prisons. I've been in the prison system, and I can tell you this is worse than prison.
Porque el trato que nos dan no es el adecuado, porque nos maltratan físicamente y mentalmente.
And the treatment that we receive is not adequate. The way they mistreat us is both physical and mentally.
Y por eso estoy haciendo esta llamada para que sepan todos que no es justo, que tenemos que luchar todos para que cierren estos lugares porque no están capacitados para tenerlos a nosotros aquí.
So that's why I'm doing this phone call, because I want these places to shut down, because they're not really, they don't have the real capacity to keep us here.
Porque que aquí los tratan peor que los criminales que estaban en la prisión.
The way they treat us here worse than the criminals we were imprisoned.
Le voy a decir una última cosa. Hace poco yo le pedí jabón a un guardia y el guardia lo que me dijo que para eso estaban las organizaciones, para que los apoyaran mandándoles dinero.
And just to end, I want to tell you that I recently asked for soap to wash to a guard, and what he told me is that I should call organizations to give me the soap because they wouldn't give us that.
Y yo lo que les dije que nosotros no dependemos de las organizaciones, que nosotros dependemos del sistema donde estamos detenidos.
And I told them we're not supposed to be depending on organizations. We're supposed to be dependent on this entity that have us here detained.
Y ellos además los amenazan diciéndolos que los van a llevar al hoyo o que los van a castigar. Esas son las palabras de ellos para nosotros.
And what they tell us is that they will retaliate against us. They will send us to the hole, that's segregation, and that's the words they use against us.
También tengo otro ejemplo. Hace como 2 semanas tenemos un baño arruinado y nunca lo vienen a arreglar.
I have another example. 2 weeks ago, the bathroom was broken, and they didn't come to fix it.
Eso es todo lo que yo tengo que decir para ustedes. No sé si tienen alguna pregunta.
That's all I have to say for now. I don't know if you have any questions. Rudy, quédate en la línea. Vamos a tener primero a Angelina y dejamos las preguntas al final.
Ok, si se corta le vuelvo a marcar porque
Sí.
solo da 10 minutos.
Okay.
Le vuelvo a marcar.
Okay, so he's going to try to stay on the line, and if he gets cut off, because usually it's just 10 minutes, he will call us back. So Angelina is the director of the Center for Human Rights at the University of Washington. Like I said, we've been partnering with them and their expertise for many years. So I'm going to let her speak about the report that they just published.
So good afternoon. My name is Angelina Godoy, and I'm the director of the Center for Human Rights at the University of Washington. I'm here to share the findings of our latest report, which was published this week. We began this investigation at the request of La Resistencia and others who were alarmed about the February 1st deployment of chemical agents this year in this facility. And we wanted to look into how frequent these kinds of incidents are and what are their human rights implications. So we reviewed ICE's own records obtained through the Freedom of Information Act, records of some 70 distinct deployments of the use of force, some using chemical agents, some not, since 2015. And what we learned fundamentally was that the incidents of February 1st were not unusual. In fact, incidents of use of force are reported by ICE itself about once a month at this facility. And there are reasons which we document in our report that we believe that's likely to be an underreporting. In other words, it's likely that these kinds of things happen more than once a month on average. From a human rights point of view, we're particularly concerned that this appears to be part of the daily functioning and maintenance of order in this facility. In particular, the way in which it's used against individuals with mental illness and individuals who are exercising their constitutionally protected right to free speech through actions like hunger strikes. Why is this particularly worrisome? Well, individuals with mental health may disobey facility rules because of the mental health condition from which they suffer and for which they are likely not obtaining adequate medical care within these walls. So to punish them with uses of force and chemical agents is unspeakably cruel, and to do so over and over and over again, as we found, often happens against the same individual in an escalating cycle of cruelty over time, is a core violation of their human rights. The same pattern of escalating violence occurs against hunger strikers, as we've heard from folks speaking to us today. People who file grievances and try through all other mechanisms to express their displeasure with what's being done to them in violation of their human rights sometimes turn to hunger strikes. And the routine way in which they are treated by ICE and GEO in this facility is through being sent to solitary confinement and being subjected to the use of force. This is actually permitted under the rules that ICE and GEO claim are so rigorous to govern this space, because ICE and GEO consider that a disruption of facility order. So if people speaking out against the most violent and brutal retaliations against them for simply speaking their mind is permitted as a justification for the use of force, then we enter into the same cycles of escalating cruelty that our report documents. So those are our general findings. I'd be happy to answer any more specific questions if you have them.
Okay, thanks. So we asked members of the community to show up on a Wednesday at noon, and they took time from their busy schedule. And what we want to reiterate is that we knew this has been happening for way too long. Yet, many of the different reports that you will hear from ICE is that nothing is happening, that everything is fine. And it takes this really investigative work to actually get details from ICE themselves saying that they acknowledge that violence continues happening. If you add to that the fact that this detention center is the one that gives the least rate, has the lowest rate of bonds given in the country. This was just released in a report last month in July by the University of Syracuse that look at the bond rate given throughout the entire nation. Because let me tell you, people here are not serving a sentence. This is a civil matter. And ICE has all the authority to detain people. They also have the authority to release people. Yet they don't do it because this is a private system. It has a motivation of profit. Your money, my money, and their money, our loved ones' money, goes to sustain this system. And as it is built, the ICE tells people, well, just you can ask the judge for a bond. Again, this detention center bond rate at a national level is 3%, the lowest, in comparison to another one, Crum Detention Center in Florida, which is almost 50%. Florida, out of all the states. So that tells you that there's a big incentive here to keep people detained. The other reason is because GEO's contract with ICE guarantees a minimum of 1,100 beds. So regardless of the number of people detained, they get at least the money for 1,100 beds. That means your money, my money goes every day here, even if they hire 100 people, 500 people, or 2 people, they still get that money. And then you add to that the fact that they don't want to provide the basic medical care or the basic housing care, right, which is health care, well, that's provided by ICE, but food or clothing, bedding, air conditioning, so on and so on. That's why we also work on the passing on HB 1470 this year to make sure that people in detention and their grievances are heard by our state, because remember, this is a private business and it should be regulated by our state, and the state agree. Any business should be accountable to our community like any other business. This bill is now law since May, yet GEO decided to file a lawsuit against our state because they don't want to be accountable. If they're really doing things right, like people in detention told us, if they were doing things right, they would not be afraid of having inspections unannounced by the state. But that's another way to tell you they don't want to be accountable and they want to get away with absolutely everything they're doing to people in detention. So with that said, I think we're going to open it to questions. If Elia and Angelina want to come, and yeah.
I just have one question. Something that you said earlier about how you and your organization, you've been speaking about this for some time now, but you've had to wait until, like you said, the quote-unquote experts to come by and basically verify your stories and the stories of the people that have spent time in this facility. How does that feel to, on one hand, like you said, it's good to have these experts, but to have your story and their stories questioned to such a degree?
The fact that we question what we say and what we prove, it shows that there's still a lot of work to do in our communities. People still believe that it's okay to cage people. Most people, I think, would agree that it's not right to cage elephants or dogs, right? We love our pets. Yet, are we okay with caging human beings, and especially for profit? So it also shows that authorities wouldn't really pay attention to the grassroots, because people that are detained here, they don't vote. And most elected officials, they don't care about those that don't vote. That is the truth. So it shows that we have to do extra work to be believed. If ICE comes and gives you a press release, you will take it. But if we send you one, you're going to come and question us. And you're going to say, prove it. But we don't hear that media goes and tells ICE, prove it. Prove that you didn't do it. And it takes a lot of effort on our end as a grassroots volunteer, very thin budget organization to be able to do this. We don't have more members here because they're all working. Elia had to drive all the way from Eastern Washington and take a day off from work to be here and say, look what's happening to my family and to my loved one. And they're so worried of what could happen to him next that's why she had to do the drive, and look what the gas prices are. And yet she made the decision to take a day off, not only losing wages, but also losing money for gas and food and taking her entire family here. So it is worrisome that our society still question those that are the experts on oppression. Any other question?
What is being done about, you're saying the bond rate here is way higher than before. What is being done about that? Is that part of what you're working on too, for the bond rate, because you're saying that 50% of the people that are in ICE detention, they're from bond out, and they're able to get out. Other cases are being heard, and here it's 3%. Is there anything can be done?
Yes, and a lot of legal organizations are working on that precisely to show that it's true. The immigration law has changed a lot. A lot of people said there hasn't been any reform, but it actually has. But it's not reform on the benefit of people detained. It's reform to actually sustain a detention system that is huge nowadays. And it's true that a lot of judges, or all judges nowadays, don't have the discretion that they used to have in the past, but they do have the discretion to set bond. And that's something that a lot of the legal organizations have been working on. What we think it's also helpful is that you all know that the three main judges that we have here for decades are the same, and they still they refuse to give bonds. And I think once this is exposed, it will also help the efforts of those legal organizations to make sure that judges feel the pressure to be exposed, that they do have discretion in regards to bonds. They don't have discretion in regards to, oh, you are not gonna leave the country, you can get a green card, maybe not. But in regards to bonds, they do have discretion, and that is the biggest point here that we want people to know.
Señora Elia, ¿has sabido de los bonds usted?
¿De las fianzas?
Sí, pero no está en nuestra vida tener eso. No es fácil, porque como habemos familias grandes, entonces aún así batallamos en juntar el vivir y no es fácil. Sí, y igualmente es una presión en esa manera, porque cuando fallas en algo es más duro. Sí, fallar a algo así es más duro. Entonces no es fácil para las familias.
¿Qué más de recursos hay como buscas una
recursos.
Como si yo lo estoy preguntando de una forma para explicar a otros que a lo mejor están en su situación, pero quieren ayudarse. Solo como que usted ha encontrado un poco de acceso, un poco de ayuda en ¿Qué puedes decirles a los
que siempre, la mera verdad, tengan fe, porque no son malos los que están aquí. Están detenidos por algo que a veces ni sabemos por qué es. No se les dice claramente por qué están aquí. Entonces es duro, y yo solamente les podría decir que tengan mucha fe y tengan comunicación con sus familiares, porque yo tengo más hijos y emocionalmente estamos quebrados todos.
Angelina.
Yes. Hi. I just wanted to ask you, kind of going back to the fact that this is a privately owned institution.
Yes.
How much of the fact that this is a privately owned institution plays a role into some of the activities here? You all shared what's been happening here at this institution and other privately owned institutions.
Well, the majority of people in immigration detention today in the United United States are in privately owned facilities, and so the patterns that you see here are unfortunately very common. The use of force is very common. The other issues that we're talking about here are very common. I think an important thing to note, though, is that sometimes people locally think, oh, because we're in the state of Washington, things must be better. But as you see with the bond rates, or we produced a report a few years ago about solitary confinement, where we found that this facility had, on average, the longest days of solitary confinement anywhere in the nation. So it's very important to understand that each facility is different, and there's lots of ways in which we might assume, given the political climate here, that this facility is quote unquote better than, and in fact it really isn't.
Me emocioné, pero una de las razones que yo estoy aquí es cada día buscando saber de ellos, y la organización esta, cuando yo me vi desesperada saber que no podía estar con él, pude localizar a la señora Maru, y ella me ha sacado de muchas dudas que tengo, y yo lo siento un soporte muy fuerte, y por eso hoy estoy haciendo un soporte aquí, y igual para ir a explicar a quien me pregunte sobre sus familiares que tengan aquí, que la busquen y que se unan.
I want to interpret that thing. So they were having a conversation about bonds, right? So if her family could afford a bond, and she says, there's no way we can afford it. And let me tell you that the amount, the standard amount is anything between $10,000 and $15,000, but we have seen bonds amounts up to $30,000 or $35,000 too. And he was asking also if there's resources that you can have, what would that be? And she wouldn't. She said there's not really resources, right? But then she came back and said, I got very emotional when you asked the question, but now I think that it has been very draining in our family. But when we started having all these issues, we reached out to Resistencia, and they help us clarify a lot of questions. So for any families that are out there, and the reason why I came here is because I received all this support from Resistencia, so I'm here to give that support back. So I'm telling families now that if they have this situation as well, they should come and support Resistencia's work. Yes.
I guess I have one more question for you. Kind of piggybacking with what you were saying about the professor's answer about how people might have this idea that because this facility is in Washington, that it might be better. This facility has been a point of contention here in Tacoma for some time, and with all of the incidents that have been reported, it's still in operation. So, what kind of message do you think that sends to the people here in Tacoma, or what do you think that says about the city? What do you think that says about the city, that this facility is still allowed to operate here in Tacoma?
Yeah, this facility is going to be 20 years in operation next year. And before they built it, there was actually a fight between City of Auburn and City of Tacoma fighting to bring this here, and City of Tacoma won. So they actually proactively fought to have this place built here. And let me remind you, we are in a Superfund site. The entire port is a Superfund site. This is completely polluted. You are being exposed to a lot of pollution right now. So now imagine people here living 24/7. You don't see any other residents here. You don't see anything but industrial zone. Yet we have a residency for 1,575 people according to the GEO's official number, which actually the reality based on the information we have is 1,975 capacity. Yet in 2020, when the pandemic happened, we saw how people in detention decided to again risk themselves, and they did an SOS action. And they, with their own bodies, shaped SOS back there in the yard. And we took pictures, aerial pictures of that. And even the very conservative Tacoma News Tribune agreed with them. And the next day, they have an editorial saying that the detention center must be shut down and the people should be released because of the pandemic. And they closed their editorial by saying SOS indeed, and they had the pictures of the people detained shaping SOS. Also in 2020, we were able to move the entire council and the mayor to finally vote on a resolution also calling for the release of people detained because of the pandemic. Nowadays, we're engaging with the city of Tacoma every month to figure out ways in which people in detention should be first safe and second released. So we have gone a long way, but a lot of people in Tacoma are not aware that this is happening. It's out of sight, out of mind. And it's very useful. That's why they chose this site. There was no coincidence in coming here. This is a dead end. It's in the middle of nowhere. Even when we started our actions against this place, people from the different factories would come and ask us, what are you doing here? Some people thought we were houseless people just camping here. And we had to explain everyone. So again, the system, the entire system is built so no one knows anything because they don't want to be accountable to anyone. Because once the truth is shining on this place, people get outraged and they fight against this. And we hope that city of Tacoma, the entire city comes along with us and say enough is enough. We shouldn't even have laws against this. We should just have the entire community coming and saying, this place must be shut down, these families should be reunited. They will have their deportation proceedings going on. We're saying, okay, people in detention are not saying, don't deport me. What they're saying is, release me so I can be with my families and fight the deportation proceedings. I'm an example of that. I was in deportation proceedings for 4 years and I was never detained. So ICE has that again. They have the discretion to detain or not detain people. And they could right now open these doors and let everyone out. They could. They don't want to because they're part of this for-profit system. Any other questions?
Have you had any response yet from any of the state of Tacoma, any of the states about the report that was released?
We have not.
No, not yet. Any other questions? That's it. All right, well, thank you so much, everyone. We appreciate it. Thank you. And if you want to come into the shade, because I mean, it's kind of hot in there. And thank you, everyone. We're going to take a picture, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Can we take a picture?
Yeah, your phone got too hot. Okay.
Oh,
now
yeah.
cool down.
we can really, yes, because this is what we do. What we do is so hot that the phone gets hot. You went first?